Well, here's the best part of the meeting today. You will get to see we have a new baby since the last meeting. So this is the two brothers. We've got Harlow and we've got Jasper. Jasper's 7 weeks old yesterday. And I'll tell you, if you ever could have imagined how fun being a grandparent was, I couldn't expect it to be this awesome. So we're thoroughly enjoying him. And the good news is my daughter moved 8 minutes from us. So if you think that I am not over there all the time, you're mistaken because I am and loving every bit of it. And so this is the new members to the FEPP team. That's also, as I will say, the reason why we do the work that we do, because I know that the work that we're all doing here today will benefit their future, which also makes the world a little better place. I'll give you the grant update. As you all know, I'm just going to keep some perspective. This was the third year of our grant, fourth year total, but third year of the grant that districts could apply for. And so we know that there was a little bit of a challenge with the grants. I'm not going to ever say they weren't successful, but we just know that it changed districts' desire to apply for it because we were also seeing how the graduation requirement legislation played out. But I will tell you that we've still done everything we can to support districts who've expanded financial education. And I feel like we've learned a lot over 4 years. Lance will nod his head how much we've learned, but how much we realize that this FEPP team is poised and ready to support districts even without the grants. And that's what we talked about earlier today is our ability to continue supporting districts even when the grants are over. So right now, as you can see, out of the 2 million that has been allocated for the year, we have had almost 1.4 million that have been applied for. And at that point, we've had just a little over 200,000 that have invoiced. Now, the districts, they'll come in. That doesn't mean they're not doing any of the work. It just means that they have a little bit of time. We've been working with some of them individually for professional development. Some of them just some support or guidance on resources and materials. We've also been able to assist districts that just needed to know how to start, how to get started. And so it's been really, really awesome to see how our team can step in. We can start having conversations with districts around what kind of things are already in place. We can consider what's already in place with what some other district priorities are. And then we've been able to really hone down into resources and materials that will support them. And we're surprised every day. You'll get to hear from Amy shortly about some of the work that she's been doing. And some of that includes the work with the districts. But just know that good things are happening around the state. And the districts have until June to spend those funds, but we won't really know the results of that until September, which is when the invoicing is due. So it won't be until fall, sometime middle of the fall, before we really have an idea of what was utilized. So just as another snapshot on the districts, I'll see if I can make this just a little bit bigger. We've got it highlighted. I hope you can see that a little bit, just as a snapshot of our state. I'm kind of more of a visual understanding person. And as we've also kind of flagged where our fellows are located around the state, and then we see how that somewhat aligns on many cases with what's happening in the districts. We see that support and advocacy from our fellows. And also you can take a look at where you're located, our partners. If you see where you're located on here, you probably also see a little bit of an alignment of where your advocacy is having an impact around the state. By no means, this is not a snapshot of what's happening around the state. This is just merely for the conversation about the grant work. The financial education standards update. This has been a long and challenging process for sure. There's a lot of moving parts, and I greatly appreciate everybody here. There's many of you here that I know have went through the standards, through the public comment process. It's a valuable part of the process. Where we happen to be one of the lucky content areas that we found value in all the comments. There were about 19, and out of those 19, I think we had 2 changes, or maybe 20 that we had 2 changes or suggestions. Largely the comments were, these look great, we're happy we have these, we're supportive of what you're doing. And we really saw that it's not always of where we need help or changes. It's also just kind of a confirmation of that things were looking pretty good and that we were on the right track. And so thanking Pam and Lance largely for their leadership in this work, because it's been a long, long time coming. We're at the point now where we're taking those comments and we're responding to them, even if we did have one that recommended they go into mathematics or some of these other things. In addition to this, we had a couple of public comment suggestions came in after the public comment was closed, and they came in via email. So with the support of the OSPI team, we've been working on making sure we have, going through the appropriate process to plug those in and still consider those. We have a work group that we're putting together for Thursday to go through and think through those suggestions, and then we'll have an opportunity to respond. If the team decides to add those in, those will be put into a new round of draft standards, and then they should be what is considered initial adoption the end of May. That allows our districts to start considering those standards in the fall. And then the final adoption, if everything goes accordingly, should be sometime around in October-ish. Don't quote me on that because a lot of things have to fall into place to make that happen, but that's what we're anticipating. I'll just take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions about the standards. Or Barbara, do you have anything to add, or saving that for your report?
Hey, no, I don't have anything to add. I can just throw this out there now that although the financial education learning standards period of feedback is closed, the health and physical education window is still open. So if anyone has any comment they would like to provide on those two standards, I'll plug something into the chat window to let you know when those windows are available.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Any other comments or questions before I move on? Okay. You can always raise your hand too. The State Board of Education, our Future Ready project, where I had the opportunity to lead the work group on financial education and life skills. Lots of great conversations that came out of the 3 or 4 months that we were working together. We did hand off the recommendations that the subcommittee put together. We handed that off the 1st of March. Then the next meeting that the task force had was March 20th, as I understand it. And I haven't heard anything since then that they had additional questions or needed to give additional information. But we are just standing ready to pull the group together if there should be a need from the state board to have more clarification. As a reminder, this is where the state board is looking at graduation requirements holistically. They'll be considering, I think, mathematics, computer science, this financial education and life skills. They're going to be looking down the road over the next months for what implementation could look like, what any of the fiscal ramifications are. So they've got a big job ahead of them between now and I believe that it's around early fall, around September, where they should be making any recommendations to the legislature. So that's just the best that I remember what they're doing. But if I hear anything different, then I'll make sure to let you know. Any questions about Future Ready? Okay, just raise your hand if you do. We can stop at any point. The landscape analysis, we've got Artemis under contract. We've been handing off lots of information to them. This includes all of the information for all the districts that apply for grants, excuse me, for all 3 years. We're taking any reports that districts have done through the 3 years. Of course, that's mainly for the first 2 years. And then we're looking at, they'll be putting together also a snapshot of what the districts were actually doing with the grant. Did they do a full K-12 rollout? Did some of them just prioritize elementary? Did they prioritize high school? And we did have several districts that said that this was preparing them for graduation requirements. So they were going to self-impose graduation requirements regardless of how the legislation turned out of the state. So lots of things have been happening in that regard. They will have a full report at our meeting in June, the end of June. So the other thing that they're doing is working with all that we've handed off all our partnerships, all the vendors that we've done curriculum review for, and this is just going to be probably not perfect to know exactly what's going on. There's just no way to know what all is being done, but we're working with our vendors that hopefully will hand over the data so we can collect where they're recording, the districts they're working with, how many teachers they're working with, how many students are impacted. So this is something that will be pretty comprehensive by the time it's done. So you'll want to be here for the June meeting if at all possible and hear from them how they've synthesized all this information and really given us the best snapshot. This is going to be important also for any of the work that lie ahead for graduation requirements. We can show what's already in place. I think that's very exciting to see that we can be a lot more proactive with this information. And I'm just excited to see how it all ends up in the long run. We have, I've asked them to, sorry, I'm still letting people in and it's like walking and chewing gum. So have asked them also to look at some of the districts that we've seen great results from with the grant funds, and they're going to actually build those in as case studies. And so those would be examples of districts that may need that they may see one of these districts that look a little more like them. It gives them a little bit more of a framework to go forward with building in financial education. So just stay tuned. That's going to be really, really a good meeting to participate in. We've gone around, Milady and Lance have been working some with our Native community on Native Education Conference. Actually, she's heading to this conference, I think, today, and up in Snohomish, and it's just a good opportunity to stay engaged and support that community where they've asked us. We traveled, Amy and I were able to, and you'll see a little bit more in her report, attended the National Association of Economic Educators in Kansas City, and my first real live experience with the tornado overhead in the middle of the night. A little bit concerning, but hey, they're used to that. So outside of that, then the bomb threat in the airport. Outside of that, it was just the best time. I'm just kidding. I know, Helen. I'm feeling you. I was like, you just couldn't write that out. But otherwise than that, we had such a great time. Got to meet some really great people. I'm not going to spoil Amy's presentation. She'll share one of our really proud moments getting to meet somebody that has been important to our work. And then let's see. Lance also is going to be telling you about this AP Business with Personal Finance workshop that he attended on Friday. So hang in there for that. Some of the districts that we've been particularly working with, let's see, Harrington, Amy will talk about that. We were able to still pull in our fellows. We had Lisa Whittling and Mary Ziegert was able to attend some trainings that we did in Battleground. It was just great experience to see. I think that's the best part of the work we do when we get to help deliver that professional development. Battleground was a little different, that they had a survey that they submitted to their educators at the end of the training we did. The first training was 7th grade. They're prioritizing 7th and 4th. So for 7th grade, we did one group of educators one day, and we did a second group of 7th grade educators the second day. And we did the same for 4th, 2 different groups of educators, 1 day of training each. The district actually handed over the evaluations, and a couple of the questions they asked teachers to self-report what their confidence was before taking the training. And we saw a lot of 3s and 4s. Then the next question was, what is your confidence level after the training? And it was 4s and 5s. And so when we saw teachers that were at the 5 at a max, that's where they were leaving that training. It was really exciting to see that very validating to see that the work we did, they were really just getting it. And a lot of them anecdotally were saying that they were kind of nervous about how to even get going on this. And then after they took the training, they had all the confidence to go, and they were saying they were ready to go into the classroom the next day. They felt like confident that they could go in the classroom the next day and start using the materials that we gave them and making a difference. And that's very empowering, I have to say. And then we also got to go up to Mount Vernon and be part of, they were doing more of a parent night. And so we also had some of our partners go up and set up tables and just seeing different ways that we can support districts and the communities through the partnership, but also through the work that we can do to support. And we'll continue working with Mount Vernon. Amy did elementary education, and we're going to do their secondary education at the end of May. So this is what we've got coming for June. We're going to be doing a hot topics in financial education. We're doing this down in Battleground. We haven't been on the south side of the state in a little while. So we're going to be down there trying to come up with very unique and different innovative topics. We've got one of our partners in a material called Pocket Change. They're award winning. And his name is Dialect, and he does a lot of financial education through music and really empowering educators and coming from this music background that helps give teachers that entry point with students through music. That's not all. He's got a lot more to bring to the table, but it's just really great that he's available and able to come. We also have the St. Louis Federal Reserve, somebody there that develops lessons, and she's just dynamic. And if you went to the symposium that Wasifi did last summer, she was there doing some training on some of the lessons she developed. She'll be back for more. So just if you know educators, our ask to you is to please share the link and the registration. It's going to be the 23rd and 24th of June in Battleground, and this is part of what we budget. It costs nothing to the teachers to come and attend this. We also would like to invite any of our partners to come. If you are down in that area and you want to come pop in and meet teachers and see what we do while we're there, we would love to have you there. Just let us know and we'll make sure that we make room for you at the table. It's a great facility. It's a really, really great facility that we're at in Battleground. We have expanded our LinkedIn, and if you haven't followed us on LinkedIn, please do so. We're very excited to see those numbers going up. Linda has been super devoted, and I appreciate her support to getting that up and running because we'd had months of dead ends with Instagram. So we shifted our priorities and went to LinkedIn, and it's just been great to see the increase in our visibility there. And that is all I have. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Pam, do you have anything to add about the training?
No, except it's going to be great.
Yep, excited about it. All right. Well, let's go back to I've realized that people have asked for these PowerPoints, so I've started attaching them to the minutes. So if you're looking for the PowerPoint, you'll get them as part of the minutes. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and ask. We've done roll call. Linda, you good to go on roll call? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and ask if you've had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting, which was in December, and if anybody would like to entertain a motion.
Tracy, I'll move that the minutes be approved.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a motion. Is anybody able to second that? And our FEPPP team can't vote.
I'll second it. This is Ryan Davis with Fenn.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as written. All those in favor, thumbs up, heart, whatever, nod your head, clap. Okay, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. And then is there anybody that, whatever the opposite of approve is, I can't think straight. And is there any abstentions? So it looks like the minutes are approved as written. Okay, next item on the agenda, I've got the Education Committee report. So Bobby, are you going to give that for
Yes,
the,
ma'am.
okay.
All right. So thanks, everybody. Bobby DeGucci, the co-chair of the Education Committee. Happy to present today. Our wonderful, my co-chair, Helen, was unable to be at the last meeting, so I'm sharing with you guys. Some of the things that we already talked about. We talked a little bit about the work that's being done in Battleground and that there's elementary training that's coming up next for that. The March 28th training, I was very sad to see that we were not able to do that with Dr. Hill from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank. Unfortunately, some of those issues are things that we continue to have challenges with. As I shared in our executive meeting earlier, the work at the elementary and pre-K level sometimes can be challenges, and we're going to continue to try to plan for that. Tracy shared, and you have a link there for the training in Battleground on June 23rd and 24th. From a policy level, we talked a little bit about the standards update. We do know that we're looking forward to final adoption being handled on October 26th, and Tracy shared a little bit about some of the work being done at the Future Ready subcommittee. So some things you're going to hear that we go over in our different committees as well. At the national level, Tracy shared with you that we attended the NAEE conference, and the keynote speaker was Marjorie King Mitchell, whose work connects to financial themes, storytelling, and lived experience. Hopefully, I'm not doing any spoilers here. And then we also talked a little bit about the teacher showcase, which was shared by Amy, and that helped teachers understand some different things to do in the classroom and some newly revised lesson materials. It's really important because that shows us taking the work that we do here in terms of the standards and in terms of some of the committee work and actually see practical implementation in the classroom. So that connection from the theoretical work to the practical work. Some other things that we have going on, we talked a little bit more about district level implementation through grants, our continued work on the statewide standards, and then our focus on practical application and also delivering culturally relevant instruction, which some of the things that you heard that both Lance and Milady are working on at the moment. And I think that's a pretty good overview without repeating all the other information that Tracy was able to share.
Hey,
Oh, go ahead, Tracy.
I was going to say ask for questions unless you had something else to add.
Oh, I was just going to say, and in our research and readings, we talked a little bit about, for those of you guys that were able to attend, we talked a little bit about credit scores and how we teach that as educators. But in reality, we reviewed an article from a person that works on personal finance for the Wall Street Journal, how the actual reality can be quite confusing. There's a lot of information also that exists in different areas that are not always 100% accurate or things that can't quite be implemented. So it was a good discussion that we had. And if you have any questions, love to answer those. And again, you're more than welcome. And we hope that you do attend our education committee meetings monthly.
Great. Any questions? Okay. I am going to give you the communications committee report. Again, as we realize that a lot of the updates that we give in one meeting, we're giving it in all the subcommittee meetings. So you may hear the same thing more than once, and I apologize for that, but it has captured in the minutes. So the large part of the communications, I'm going to give this on behalf of Lynn Peters, who is the chair of the communications committee. Again, we just talked about adding LinkedIn. We thank Jeremy on her team that has been so helpful of us getting this on track. Unfortunately, due to a little bit of an overcommitment in his workload, he's going to have to step away for a little while, but I think we've got a good plan now. We have a new team member that is going to help give us some support on going through the website. If you visited our website at all, you see that over time and as we've evolved, it's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And so now what we're going to do is be working with Linda to go back and look at the analytics. If there are things like that we don't have to have on there that are part of our legislative charge or a part of our compliance, the Open Public Meeting Act, we may start thinning it out a little bit. So we'll have that guidance from our communications committee. But one thing that you won't see most likely shrinking, and it may continue to grow, is our resources, because we are getting a lot of activity from districts that have that as a reliable place to go to look for anything that they're looking for, whether it's by grade band, whether it's by our special populations or other things. That we're really seeing that the time and energy we've put into reviewing materials and having them presented on the website has been extremely valuable. The committee talked about conferences they were attending. Particularly, Lynn was going to the FBLA conference and setting up a table. And one of the things that that committee does is they somewhat share opportunities. So if one of them is going to a conference and somebody else is not, we can make sure that we can share things that each of them have support for those other partners. I think that's largely everything we have. Any questions from the communications committee? Nope. We are going to move on to the development committee. So, Eric, I'm going to report for Eric Christensen today. Basically, everyone received a copy of the monthly budget report. There's no surprises in there. Everything's right on target. We will see some of the bigger chunks coming out as we come to the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. We know that Artemis is on board now, and their contract will be taking a good amount off of the amount we have remaining. It's also some indirects that we have to pay OSPI for the services they provide. And we were in need of some new computers, which is a big dollar amount. So we're able to handle all that within the budget. Lyndon, as you can see, Linda's got the grant report in there as well. That is pretty much just what I had in the executive director report. No big surprises there. We'll just keep that updated every month so that we can monitor that the districts are actually invoicing us for the work that they're doing. Lastly, we're in the process of putting together our budget for next year. We're not looking at anything that's going to be largely different other than we will have a change in staff for the next fiscal year. Pam and Lance have decided that they think retirement sounds like a good idea. And every day Lance reminds us of how much time he's got left. 3 months yesterday. Who's counting? And without him, saying, I won't be here for that one more time. I'm just giving him a hard time. We're grateful for the work that they have done. We'll be doing a celebration. Pam has assured us that she has had plenty of retirement parties when she left Western, but we will be doing a little get together at the agency June 10th. If anybody would like to come to Olympia, we will make sure you are all invited to come down and celebrate Lance's long-standing service with basically mainly K-12. Well, actually K-20, right? More like K-20. Lance has been around for a long, long time. I'm just going to give you a minute, Lance, put you on the spot and talk about your career. So I don't know that everybody realizes this long career you've had in education. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let you give a little bit of your background here.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, kind of didn't have anything planned, but I can kind of do a rewind because it's been a while coming, and so appreciate everyone's best wishes. Yeah, started quite a while back. Came out of college and had an opportunity to teach at South Puget Sound, which was then a community college with District 12 in Centralia, and spent 10 years at the college there before going to work for the state as an accountant, because everyone said if you want a good job in Olympia, you probably should work for the state. So did that for a few years where I met my wife. And then after a few years there, had an opportunity to jump back into public education. Got a call from the White Pass superintendent one day and said, I understand you have a business ed teaching certificate. Interested in a job for next year? And I went, say what? Because I wasn't looking for a job at the time. But after a couple of conversations, I ended up leaving the state and jumping into K-12 and a new program in White Pass. Did 2 years there, then got an opportunity to expand my horizons and go to PL. For those that aren't familiar with the cities in Washington, you might want to check some pretty rural areas between White Pass and PL. Went to PL for a couple of years and then got a call from the director at Chehalis School District and wanted to know if I wanted to come work for a big district. And I said, well, I kind of like the small districts. I have 7, 8 kids in a class. Why would I want 30 in a class? But he convinced me that it would be worth my while. So went to Chehalis, WF West for 7 years before an opportunity of a lifetime for me, which was always taught at the community college part-time while I was teaching. And they had an opening at Centralia College for a tenured instructor. So I finished my tenure at Centralia College after 3 years of tenure, and then did a couple more years. And then the gal that hired me in White Pass had gone to work for OSPI. And I got chatting one day, and she says, "Well, any interest in coming to Olympia?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "The business ed supervisor quit last week, and I need a new business ed supervisor." So after a couple of months of conversations, I left the college and came to work at OSPI to do pathway supervisor for business and marketing for 10 years before I had an even greater opportunity when my current boss called me one day and said, "Hey, we've got some legislation pending. If I get some money, I want you to come to work for me." And I just said, "Yeah, we'll see what you can afford, Miss Tracy." And have it be what it was. It turned out to be a very good opportunity for me to focus on a single topic area. As Holly can attest, business and marketing is pretty broad in the CTE world. So now I could focus my last 4 years of employment on financial education, which has been an absolute blessing. Love the team that we put together. And it's just been an amazing ride. So hard to believe it's almost over, at least this part of it. So yeah, so be starting to wrapping up and working some shorter weeks in the coming months. And in June 30th, will be my official last day at the office. That was a quick summary.
Thank you, Lance. It's been a joy. What you guys don't realize, Lance actually was, like Holly is one of the superintendent's appointees on our board. And so we've been working together for a very long time, and then with intermittent projects around the agency. I think my team will admit that the thing we're going to miss the most is Lance's celebrity status, because it doesn't matter where we go. It doesn't matter who pops into a meeting. It's always like, "Oh my God, he exists. He's in person. I've only seen him from afar." And we're like, "Oh, please." So we've had a lot of fun with all his celebrity status around the state. So thanks for letting me put you on the spot, Lance. That brings me to the wrap up of the development committee. I thank you for letting us do a little sidebar. The development committee, we will be shifting what the team looks like. So we'll bring on another secondary program supervisor, where we've had the vacancy for a while, and then we'll probably be looking at somebody that's more of a business manager or policy type person. Our needs have changed as we've grown and expanded, and so you'll see a couple of recruitments starting to come out next month. And that's it for the development committee report. And I am going to let Barbara take over and do the OSPI report.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you all. So just a couple things coming out of OSPI. Recently, OSPI awarded the award for educational excellence. This is the inaugural superintendent's award that went out to 46 schools across the state. The award is provided to the 25 top performing school districts in educational achievement the previous year, and also the top 25 performing school districts in progress over the last 3 years. So I'm going to actually pop into the chat window a few links that reference all the things that I'm talking about. Tracy mentioned learning standards, and just to give you a heads up, the ELA standards have just been released. So they are now in the initial adoption and implementation phase, joining the math learning standards. Financial education, the feedback sessions have closed now, and work will be ongoing certainly in getting those ready for the initial adoption phase. But what is still open right now is the health and physical education standards. So Shape Washington is hosting some educator feedback events on the drafted standards, and they're going to focus on the priority standards that are identified at each grade band and the supports that educators need to effectively implement those. So there is one session that's happening tonight, and there's another one on April 14th. And if you follow the link in the chat window, you can see more information about that. Yeah.
No, thank you. I was like, where's this learning standards one? It was in between the other two. Thanks. I'm just grabbing that
I've
link.
embedded them all in there.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next month is, of course, financial literacy Education Month on our Washington OER Hub, which for those of you that don't know, that hub is OSPI's online repository, online library for free and open resources that are accessible by anyone. But we will feature a featured content area every month, and of course, we'll highlight financial literacy this coming month. So, Amy, I'm going to be reaching out to you shortly, and you can let me know what resources that you would like highlighted on there. I'm assuming probably the Take Charge resource that you just completed, but if you want to think of a few others to add on there as well, and if anyone else has any other suggestions, I can be sure to spotlight those in the featured content area. I think that's it for me, unless folks have questions.
Thank you, Barbara. Does anybody have any questions for Barbara? That would be a good chance for me to say, Barbara, thank you for bringing up Financial Literacy Month next month. If anybody has any work you're doing to celebrate that, send it to us. We'll add it to our bulletin as being a good partner. We would love to share any outreach you're doing or even any great articles that you've got. Please send it to, actually, you can send it to fepp@k12.wa.us. And Linda can rotate that in. So we try to send those bulletins every Friday. So we'd love to share any of the work you're doing to celebrate that. Okay, last call for anything for Barbara. Thank you, Barbara, so much. And I didn't realize the ELA standards until you said it earlier today, had been in the initial adoption. So I was mistaken when I said we were the second ones. We're actually going to be the third. So I appreciate that information. Okay.
Sorry to bump you down a slot.
Hey, we are happy to see the finish line. That's what I will say about that long process. So then I'm just going to do a quick little bit of an update on the chair report for Representative Stonier. Just a few little housekeeping things under the legislative updates. As most of you who followed, there was two things in the legislation during the session that affected FEPPP. There was one which was a separation bill that was submitted by Representative Stonier, and that one did not make it out of appropriations. And the second legislation was the Treasurer's bill, sponsored by Senator Cortez, that didn't make it out of the Senate. And so that was the graduation requirement legislation. What I will say is that both of these pieces of legislation did not die in vain, if you will. They allowed us to continue conversations. They allowed us to, I know that was pretty bad taste, wasn't it, Amy? I know, it's only Tuesday, but it feels like Friday. We have seen a lot of progress in the work that we've been able to show the legislature that we're doing. It's also been able to keep conversations going about the fact that the small boards need a little bit more flexibility that the superintendent might not be able to give because of the size of that organization. So it does allow us to share with the legislators and other advocates the work that we're doing, but it also shows them ways that we can be more efficient. So I wouldn't say that any of the legislations, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily fallen on deaf ears or we didn't have progress. Any time we have the opportunity to share and showcase the work we're doing is progress. So if you have questions, let me know. Or does anybody have any other comments about their experience with the legislative session that they want to share? Please we've got plenty of time to do that today. Just as a quick side note, we have some students coming in from UW to give a presentation. They cannot be here because of their class schedule till 12:30. So if you see me stretching a little, I know oftentimes we get done with this meeting a little early, but today we just can't be early because we want you I don't want you to miss out on their capstone project that they're going to share with us today. So anybody have any other things to share around the legislative session or their experience? Okay. Do you want to talk about that, Ryan? I'm happy to give you the platform.
Well, I will never deny an opportunity to chat with you fine folks. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Davis, he, him pronouns, Financial Empowerment Network. I am our sole person who pays attention to the legislative session, and my capacity is probably similar to all of y'all's. So this is our collection of things that we have tried to keep track of. It now being the end of session, this page is gonna sort of go quiet. It holds the bills that we advocated on that passed. I believe that there's a couple of years of lookbacks of the various things that we've worked on. And most importantly, I believe that there's a resource page for other legislative trackers in the financial empowerment space, as well as a 101 from our friends at the Statewide Poverty Action Network of exactly how much advocating can you do in your role. Do all of that.
Keep going. I'm just typing you into the minutes.
I happy to talk more, but I feel like the most of the things on there are not as relevant to the rest of this conversation as maybe the rest of the agenda? Question mark?
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, it's always good to hear what our partners are doing, especially even if you're in adult financial education. That's part of the partnership.
Fair enough. Would you like me to stay on topic with legislative session, or can I give the full Fen monologue?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, wonderful. The thing that is way easier for us to talk about is all of the things that are going on outside of the legislative space. Most of y'all probably know us as the connectors, the advocates, but most importantly, the free professional development for everybody. I'm going to put a whole bunch of workshops available in the chat. The recording, the March workshop has passed. I'll edit that when I finish my monologue. But we are 2/3 of our way through our spring workshop series on neuro-inclusive financial education and financial coaching. The recording from our Nifty Finance Neuro-Inclusive Financial Education series is up. The recording for Holding Space in Hard Times is on YouTube, but for whatever reason, that link doesn't work. And coming up next month is Navigating Money Benefits and Mental Illness, what providers need to know with some National Smart People. Registration is in the link. Also happening outside of sort of the free professional development space, Bank on Washington is one of our coalitions, one of the things that we run regularly. I want to invite everybody to the 2026 kickoff happening next week. We'll get to hear on banking data. I know, but banking data is good, I promise. Both on how we as Washington are making progress on supporting people who are un- and underbanked, and also where the gaps still are. We have David Rothstein from the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund coming to share on their Bond Hub database. We also have our open request for presentation proposals for the 2026 Bank on Washington Forum. We will be in Tacoma again this year, September 2nd and 3rd. We hold an open request for proposals every year, hoping to hear bold, innovative strategies, as well as space for thinking about new ideas in how we make it easier for people who live in Washington to support themselves and remain financially healthy, but also what is everybody's role in their community's financial health. And building collaborative relationships there is the center of what we do. Oh, and the one link that I didn't mention, in May, coming up, which is not part of our summer workshop series, but it's still good information. If you didn't know, Washington has a whole bunch of foreclosure prevention resources. People who are experts in keeping houses within the family, making sure that folks have a safe place to call home for as long as they need it. We have experts from the Washington Homeownership Resource Center, as well as Parkview Services, talking through all of the ways that support structure has been built to support Washingtonians and make it as easy as possible. All of the links and more are in the chat waiting for you. And I'll also put my email if this monologue wasn't long enough. I'm always happy to chat more. My job is making new friends, and I'm always happy to chat more.
Thank you, Ryan. I think that there are several people here that have been to the Bank On workshops. We've done them for years, and we've presented at them. And if you have the chance to go to this is such an empowering opportunity to go to see things that are we hadn't even thought of in financial education, or things that we could lend some additional support. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But do you have a certain theme you're looking for Bank On, or are you
Ooh,
just
yeah.
we're wide open?
The theme this year is bridges over barriers.
Okay.
Generally, we see a space where people like to. The Bank on Washington Forum is a great space where people who generally don't rub shoulders, think a branch manager and a housing case manager and maybe a teacher, chat about the things that are hard in financial empowerment. And our overall role is to make sure that at bare minimum that all of those people know each other, so that the next time a client has a challenge, that everybody has a strong Rolodex of resources. But like Tracy mentioned, we are often building bridges over those barriers so that we only have to solve the problem once rather than every time it comes up. And so taking that a step further, we also have what we're calling communities of action this year, sort of spicing up the idea of a breakout group or a breakout session. We will have 4 communities of action where the idea is both to learn about the new and cool things that are happening in your sphere, but also to connect with others who are working in this space and to make a plan both to move forward and make your program better, and also what role do we have in the community, in our community's financial health. I want to make sure that I get the names of our communities of action correct. And so I'm going to search those on my screen here. But they should be in the RFP document that I linked here.
Okay.
And we will be talking more about it next week.
Great. I love that. Thank you so much. Any questions for Ryan? They've been a great partner for us. And Bank On is sponsored by, if I'm not wrong, is that funding come from Department of Financial Institutions?
We do receive funding from Department of Institutions, but because the Washington State budget is what it is, most of this forum is actually paid for by sponsorships. Most of those sponsorships are the very financial institutions that we want to see as a strong partner in a strong financially healthy community.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. And this is an opportunity to show how unique FEPP is, where as a public-private partnerships, a lot of people don't realize how the work we do in K-12, how that really connects to the work that our partners are doing. We can't just solve it for those students that are in that K-12 space without also understanding there's a lot of people between that 12th grade and clear on up until, late adulthood. They don't have anything. So that's where we rely on our partners, that they have the opportunity to bring financial education to our vulnerable populations, our underserved populations, but also just adults that are part of the communities where our students are experiencing the K-12. So yeah, thank you, Ryan. You just reminded me why we have to have this partnership, and just strengthens our state even more. Okay, thank you for that. I'm putting it under good of the order, just so you know, if you see it look a little different in the minutes. New business, we're going to move on to new business. I'm going to go ahead, Lance, if you're ready to start with the AP Business and Personal Finance workshop and give an update on that, that would be great.
Sure. Before I get started on the presentation today, I just want to say kudos to Holly, because she's here today. The work that's been done in the past several months in getting this program up and running. So on Friday, Bellevue School District hosted our first in-state training, if you will, for those interested in teaching the new AP Business and Personal Finance course. For those that aren't familiar with AP programming, teachers are required to do a week of training in order to teach an AP course. AP program outlines what's required to be called AP. You have to meet certain criteria in order to use their mantra, if you will. And part of that is that they were one of the first dual credit programs. In other words, a student could get their high school credit, and if they scored high enough on the AP exam, receive college credit at agreed to universities or colleges. So this program is one of their new Kickstart programs, which is focusing and targeted towards 9th and 10th grade, where historically AP has been an upper level course for college credit and transfer. This is a new area for AP that they're working on in their Kickstarts to get more students and greater access to the AP programming and get students started earlier on some career direction and or college credit before leaving high school. So Friday they had their first training locally, and Bellevue hosted over 40 plus participants from 21 districts across the state to hear and learn about what the new AP in business and personal finance will be. So it was some great conversation, a lot of good table talk, what districts are anticipating using it, how they want to use it, whether they can use it with their existing programs, what will it change or do different. So it was a great time. I went to kind of hear what the feeling around the state was, which I was very appreciative of being able to be there to hear how different districts are looking at this particular course. Have to be honest with you, a lot of our veterans teachers, as usual with something new, are a little hesitant because they've been teaching intro to marketing for 26 years as an introduction to get students into FBLA or DECA. And they have a system down that works very well for their recruiting, for their student development and student opportunities. So it was interesting to listen to how they were seeing this course and how it might be incorporated into their programming at their local district level. So now the newer teachers that are familiar with AP are excited about the AP title, if you will, because it really does open doors and get some students who might not otherwise be looking at AP courses an introduction to that AP opportunity for personal business or business and personal finance. So a lot of the training revolved around the content of the AP programming, again, because you have to meet criteria and meet certain things within that. The nice thing about the AP programming is a lot of the legwork, if you will, is done. They've aligned to state standards using the national standards as the basis of their alignment, which is what we're adopting as part of our Washington State standards. So they provide a lot of resources, a lot of direction, a lot of guidance, a lot of crosswalking, working with DECA and FBLA for competitions and student projects and different things. And that's the other thing about this particular AP course is that the new Kickstarts have gone to an applied process. So it's very much project based. And so that's the other thing that's really nice about the AP program is that they provide the case studies, the projects, the activities. They're building out those collections or catalogs, if you will. So it was fun to take a look at some of those activities that they're including, to get the teachers having some hands-on time to try some of those themselves before incorporating them into a classroom setting. So I thought it went very, very well. Still a lot of questions as we wait for Future Ready to see where the state board lands with next year's recommendations or report to the legislature. And then how districts will use this course to meet other obligations maybe down the road. So it was an interesting day filled with a lot of conversation and a lot of good discussion about resources and what they currently have available. And then teachers beginning to sign up for their week-long training, whether it's virtually or in person. So they gave dates. They have 3 opportunities here in the state of Washington to do the training in person. They have numerous opportunities across the nation to do virtual and or in-person trainings for districts, because that training must be completed before the district offers the AP course. So a lot of preliminary work, but like I said, there were 21 districts represented at that first training on Friday. So a lot of interest across the state. Some that already have it in their schedules for next year. So they're just trying to figure out where they can get teachers trained up and be ready to go. Others that are planning ahead a little bit, going, we're not going to offer it this year, but we are going to build it into our curriculum for the following year. And so they're getting their teachers ready a little in advance to be prepped and ready to go. But like I sat next to a gentleman from Oak Harbor that's there, it's already in their schedule. He's teaching it starting in the fall. So he was already had his week of training scheduled this summer and knew where he was going on vacation because he was doing a destination training just for and to make it a vacation and get some training out of the way. So yeah, so it's exciting. And again, just kudos to Holly, who's worked diligently on having an approved framework ready for districts if they want to offer it. So they're not building it from scratch. It's all pretty well done and a lot of work being done prior to Friday's meeting in anticipation and preparation for this process. So I just want to say kudos and thank you, Holly, for all your work in getting this process going. It's kind of exciting to see and looking forward to it. That's all I have.
Lance. Thank you, Lance. Appreciate all your support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have any questions? Holly, do you have anything to add? We're happy to give you a little time to add.
I thought Lance did a beautiful job of describing the course. Of course, him having this position prior to my work here, he knows it so well, as you know. But it is being widely adopted. We've had quite a bit of interest. So if there are any questions about it, or a school that's maybe considering it, please don't hesitate to have them reach out to me. Really happy to support the implementation of this course.
Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, I'm going to let Amy jump in and start sharing all the great work that's been happening on a program level. And that should take us up to our guest speakers.
Okay, how am I doing on my presentation? Fantastic. Hello, everyone. For those of you I have not met, my name is Amy Klewer, and I serve as our K-8 program supervisor here at the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. Pam taught me an elevator pitch, and once I start, you can see the tone just kind of goes right on its own. That was great activity, Pam. So I'm going to start us off with just a little activity from one of the professional developments that we put together this year. So I'm guessing a lot of us have Netflix or pay for a Netflix subscription. If you are a millennial like me, you may have even received DVDs from Netflix in your time as the original subscription model of Netflix. So many of us have seen this logo thousands, if not tens of thousands of times in our life. So I would just be curious, if you're safely near your computer, which of these 4 shades of red are the correct hue of the Netflix logo? And if you want to enter into the chat your answer, I just wanted to start us off with a little activity to kind of demonstrate some of our approach that we give during our professional development. Again, always trying to look, as Tracy likes to say, to change the end cap and to look at fresh new ways to engage consumers of every age in being aware. Subscriptions are one of my things right now. How many subscriptions does a household need? So this is a great activity, and it's from a color quiz from The Verge, which is a few years old, because Twitter's still Twitter. That'll tell you kind of the age of it. But if you're interested, you can go ahead and check out. I'll put the link in after my presentation. It's a fun little quiz. Well, see, Ryan says all he can hear is the dun dun. Okay, so we have a lot of guesses. Thank you, everyone who participated. My little animation will take over now. And it was A is actually our correct hue, which when you see it in that Netflix logo does look correct. So it's just an interesting way on how we all relate to color, or interesting activity on how we all relate to color. And with that, I'll go into my updates. So as many of you know, a big initiative of mine here as the K-8 program supervisor has been building this resource of the Financial Education Library. And the idea, if you have not heard this before, is that if you were to walk into a library and the shelves were only full of books that talked and introduced and explored personal finance and economics, what books would be on those shelves? And then the secondary part of that was creating resource guides where all of the amazing work of the partner organizations, CEEs, our state CEEs, the Federal Reserve, where all of those amazing resources could be found on one page. And that was really the intention of creating this teacher-centered resource. So in the last year, we have expanded and updated the library, which is no small task. When you have now, we're up to 48 titles if you include our Spanish bookshelves, which have also been expanded and updated. We are providing a lot of support on the first page of those resource guides for teachers, teacher adjacent professionals, parapros, after school club leaders, anybody who has any level of experience with financial education or economics to be able to connect with the material and help kids connect with the material. So as I mentioned, we're up to 40 books in the financial education library. We've added new books to our Spanish bookshelf and updated those resources as well, making sure we're offering whenever possible, the same lesson in Spanish and English, which so many of our amazing partners are now offering. So that's been great. I'm continuing to run the Book of the Month e-newsletter program, and we are just under 200 subscribers at 186. What has been fun after presenting at some of the national conferences, I'm getting emails from Alabama and South Carolina and Wisconsin, and some of them are just from, peers and colleagues, just, which are wonderful to receive. But we are having more of a reach now, which has been very, satisfying, for all of us here, I think, to know that we're spreading these books around in many different ways. And in addition, with Barbara's invaluable guidance, the original FEPPP library resources all exist on OER, and we're just in the process, me and the mouse in my pocket, are just in the process of making sure that OER has all of the new resources and stories accessible for free forever, which we know OER provides. In addition, our partners at Take Charge Today out of the University of Arizona were kind enough to work with us on some permissions and get their wonderful mini lessons for children's books uploaded to OER as an open source resource, which I'm really excited about. That is still, I believe, pending OER review. It's still just pending. So Barbara, you can let me know anything you want if you want to direct message me about that process. But we're hoping to be able to share that shortly. Those are wonderful lessons that people don't always know about because Take Charge Today does focus on a little bit of an older student curriculum. So the library is continuing to evolve and really, really has legs with the district support that Tracy mentioned earlier. This is a list, this is a sample of the districts. It's a non-exhaustive list of the districts that we have been working with, but primarily this year. And then across, you can see how that district and how FEPP is tailoring the library to meet that district's needs. So for example, Everett invested in the full library, divided up the books by grade level and put them in book bins at each site, where Auburn is storing them in libraries, in book kits. And our next iteration of support for them is going to look like creating emergency coverage kits, because that idea came from Mount Vernon and it has a lot. If you've been in the classroom, especially recently, you know how often teachers are being asked to cover other teachers, other school staff is being asked to cover classrooms because of our sub shortage. So this is a way to make that time meaningful, but also really low prep, high impact, low prep. That's what we're going for. So as you can see, we continue to really customize district-wide support to meet exactly what these districts are looking for and give them the best chance of getting these books in the hands of teachers and open in classrooms. That's been wonderful. I've gotten to see more of the state in the last 3 years than I did the first, 27 that I lived in Washington, but it's been a great experience. A little closer to home. You notice a lot of the schools we're supporting were over on the west side, but over here on the east side, I got a chance to visit Harrington District, which is a very small rural district, south of Spokane. I don't want to say southwest of Spokane. All the whole K-12 is at one site, but one of their first grade teachers, the first grade teacher, Lily, is a member of Book of the Month. So we connected and I was able to go in and spend some time in the classroom. These are not wonderful photos of me, but just focus on the learning. We had a really great time reading Cooler Than Lemonade, which is coming up in the next round of books, and one of the Virginia Council on Economic Education's Reading Makes Sense books. As you can see, we decorated our own market stands. Here in one classroom, we had paper cash and the kids got to like share their market idea, and then everyone decided where they wanted to purchase, and people had to maybe adjust the price of their market item if people didn't have the right, there's no way someone can pay you $20 for a donut, so maybe we have to adjust our price. So it was yeah, it was great. There was a lot of learning. And then we also looked at with the older kids, we did some of the Super Bowl super spending math problems where we looked at the big numbers involved in the Super Bowl, the millions and the billions that we talk about, and helping kids have context for how big those numbers are. So that was very fun too. And another area that has seen some exciting growth is with partnerships and collaborations. As obvious, right? FEPPP is always focused on empowering our partners across the state. But in this case, we are developing a partnership with an international nonprofit through the Committee for Children, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with through their work. And if you want to share that in the chat, that'd be great too for people who don't have context of Committee for Children. But they are a nonprofit with the overarching mission of advancing the safety and well-being of children. And through that, one of their initiatives, is the Second Step program, which is a human skills or social emotional learning program. They offer K-12 curriculums, and as you can see, that empower preschoolers, teens, and all ages in between with human skills to build lifelong success. In Washington State, it is the most commonly used social emotional curriculum, particularly, I think, across K-12, but I know in our elementary schools. This has been a resource that has been requested from teachers. This really reminds me of Second Step. How do you guys align with that? Have you talked to them? And that really is what inspired me to reach out and try to make this connection. So our partnership goal is really to create this co-branded alignment, sort of a crosswalk. Where does the Second Step K-5 curriculum overlap with both the National Personal Finance Standards? I'm sorry, that's incorrect. It's the CEE and Jumpstart National Personal Finance Standards, as well as the C3 framework for economics, which is based off of our National Social Studies Standards, as well as the FEPPP Financial Education Library. So we're looking at story-based learning, human skills, all of it together in a really beautiful, holistic sort of approach. And if it's okay with Tracy, I have just a preview of it here, which is just kind of showing you, if you're like, I don't really see how this connection is going to work. This was, you can kind of see just sort of the first draft. Please recognize this is very much in draft form of how we were connecting, for example, growth mindset and goal setting, which would be their first unit, with saving. So our idea here is that we're extending that growth mindset to apply it to saving money and achieving savings goals explicitly, instead of just, looking at overarching goals, personal goals, or academic goals, right? So I think it's going to be an amazing resource. They've been wonderful to work with. They really believe in the work and see the importance of it. And so this has been a fantastic experience for me so far. As I mentioned, it's in a draft form, and I'm excited to share it with you when we do get closer to completion. Okay, and then in addition, as Tracy mentioned, we have done some traveling. I achieved a personal goal this year. It was to professional goal this year, personal professional goal, when I was selected to present at the CEE 64th annual education conference. So I was able to present the FEPPP library with a session called Once Upon a Dime, Story-Based Learning with the FEPPP Financial Education Library, which was a wonderful experience for me. And came up with a lot of great opportunities that came out of that. Actually, Milady and I were both invited to partner with CEE on a webinar series for proposals that they really liked but didn't have room to include in the conference. So if you were to go to CEE on the all available webinars, you can find pop culture and personal finance, as well as pop culture and policy. And Milady's presentation is on equitable access for all students to financial education materials. I don't think that's the exact title. We both had great success with this. I mean, all of the sessions at one point were on the top 4 watched webinars on CEE for the week. Milady was at number 1 for a while. I think 2 weeks. So it's we're still trying to get the numbers, the data, to see if we can get numbers on how many, views or downloads of the materials we have. But that was a great opportunity. They branded it. It was FEPPP and CEE. So we were really excited about that. In addition, I was invited to present virtually for Howard County Public Schools in Maryland. They came across the content linked through their state CEE and asked me to just give a virtual presentation for their social studies cadre. So it has been exciting to get these opportunities and be able to represent FEPPP, which is always such an honor, on these different levels across the country. Oh, I have animations. Yay. Okay. So as you can see, we also went to, as Tracy mentioned, our 2026 spring conference in Kansas City. I had never been to Kansas City before. If anyone has been to Kansas City or in general, I just didn't understand what good barbecue was, I guess, before I went there. So now I feel like I'm ruined for barbecue for the rest of I'm going to have to go travel for good barbecue now. But a lot of first experiences for me that were incredible. The conference itself was held at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. And now I tell everybody, if you visit a city with a Federal Reserve Bank, put it on your list of things to check out. They are cool landmarks. But as Tracy mentioned, that first picture there, you can see we had the opportunity to meet Marguerite King Mitchell, who is the author of Uncle Jed's Barbershop, which you can see we're both holding in that photo. One of the best books that just covers so many different personal finance and economic topics. It's a classic, it's an award winner. And being able to hear a story directly from the author's mouth, from their voice when she read it, you get to hear that inflection and the passion and which parts, you can tell which parts resonate the most. And it was a very wonderful experience to hear her read her story, to hear about the inspiration behind her story, and to receive an autographed copy of the book. So that was definitely a highlight. And the theme of the conference really connected to Marguerite and to some of the other visits we made was just to keep dreaming and keep the kids dreaming, and don't let one person who doesn't believe in you, or any, a group of people who don't believe in you, let them, stop you from believing you can achieve your goals. And that was also evident. We were able to visit the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum as part of the conference, which again, highly recommend. That was incredible. And another really wonderful experience was hearing the president and CEO of the Federal Reserve talk about his role and participation in the, I want to say FOMAC, but I'm sure it's FOMC meetings, and hear about him talk about, his longtime colleague, Jay Powell, and how all the different parts that go into that process was very, if you're an econ geek, it was very cool. So this was a really remarkable experience, a lot of collaboration. This picture in the center here is a gold bar in that little acrylic box with the handle and the hole is through the plexiglass that you can try to pick up a gold bar, which I could not. And so I had strange animations there. So yeah, that is my presentation of just some of the work that a snapshot of the work that we've been doing over the last year. And are there any questions I can answer about anything? And I see Tracy's covering the chat, so we got all that good to go. Thank you, Linda, too. Yay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Tracy, for the time to share what we've been working hard on.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate that. It's like there's a lot of moving parts to FEPP, and we've got a lot of things going on all the time. It's really hard to make sure you all see all the ways that we're representing the state. So this is just one small way we can get the team in and start bragging about the work they're doing and making us look good every day. I'm just going to take a pause. Amy, thank you very much for that. I couldn't find, Amy, while we're waiting for the rest of the meeting, I couldn't find specifically your presentation on CEE's website. If you want to throw that in the chat for people that might want to see that. I looked and I think I might be in the wrong place.
Yes, I will find ours and I will link them out. As soon as for some reason, I think I'm still sharing. So I apologize if
No, you're not. No.
Oh, okay. Zoom's not cooperating with me, but I will get those links.
No problem. We've got just a couple of minutes to wait for the students to get here. I'm just keeping the participation box open so I make sure I don't miss them when they're trying to be let in. Does anybody else have anything to share? And I don't know, did Lori have to pop off? I didn't know if Lori would like to take a minute to update on your big conference you just had. I hate to put you on the spot, but
oh, that's okay.
I know that was a lot of work
Tracy.
you put into it. If you don't mind taking a couple of minutes, we'll hear from some of the partners.
Yeah, we just finished our big state conference. As you know, with DECA, it's heavily embedded in a lot of financial literacy standards, from everything from, those kids creating business plans with very detailed income statements to, some of the specific personal financial literacy case studies and promotion projects. So it was our biggest conference ever. We were at 6,476 between students and advisors, and then another 600 volunteers from around the state that helped with judging and running events. And it was a lot. I can tell you, I'm getting close to retirement age, and everyone weighs on me a little bit more. But it was extremely gratifying. And just as within this organization, we're looking at ways to kind of even the playing field and provide resources for our financially challenged and diverse populations. We're doing the same thing, and Holly knows this as she serves on our board, and Lance also is. Our board works really hard to try to provide resources for not only our teachers and support for our teachers, because it's really rough for them to be able to run a CTSO on top of everything, and a lot of the times there's no stipends involved. So and especially some of them that are in teaching in those rural communities and some of those more challenging schools. So we work really hard, and we're proud of the work that we do, and the financial resources we're able to provide to those students through our Youth Equity Scholarship Program, to be able to participate in a lot of our leadership, our training. So yeah, it was a big one, and our board has formed a growth and sustainability committee to try to figure some of these pieces out, and to try to figure out how to move the needle when it comes to providing access to our programs. So thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Lori. Does anybody else have anything they want to report out while we got a couple more minutes? Looking around the room to see who might. I see Jason also. Cherish, do you have something you want to How,
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Tracy, I don't actually have an update on my end. I just wanted to say a couple things. Amy, I got to attend one of this lessons that you provided. I think it was in February, and it was amazing. It was on pop culture, and I just wanted to say thank you so much. Really enjoyed and learned so much from all the resources here. And then I did have a question, and I don't know if anyone on this call, it's okay if you don't know, but I was just curious. We do have a senator seat that's coming up in the 42nd Legislative District, and part of my work at the credit union is establishing and maintaining strong relationships with legislators, both for financial education and advancing that, and also just the not-for-profit cooperative mission. And so, seeing where the financial education bill kind of stalled in the legislature when it got to the Senate, I'm just wondering if anyone had any background information on like maybe what took place, and so that when we do start meeting with potential senators and then whoever is elected, we can come in informed because I kind of
yeah.
lost the plot a little bit halfway through the legislative session there. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand. And I understand people's concern and disappointment about that. But I think that a few things were going on. And I think that one of the things is that the future ready work was in progress. And I think some of the legislators were hesitant to really get behind making a uh, big movement until we see how that plays out. But again, it wasn't wasted effort because we were able to keep those conversations going and highlight a lot of the work being done around the state. But I think that played the largest part into it
Gotcha.
because the concern in the Senate has always been we have already so much burden on districts for graduation requirements that the thought of adding one, potentially two or three more, just seemed like a stress on the system that we weren't prepared enough to handle. And so what we also realized is every time an election happens, you get new senators and new representatives that get in there, and then it's renewing the effort to make sure they understand what's being done and the work that we're doing. And so we're working behind the scenes trying to come up with more easy propaganda or something that we can hand off to them to show what's being done. And that's where Artemis's work is going to really help us synthesize it in a way that we can, because oftentimes when you meet with legislators, we literally have anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes, maybe 10 most. And so I think here comes our students. So what I think we'll see is the fact that we've had the eye on the prize, uh, continuing to educate the legislators on what's already being done and just making sure that we're not stressing a system that's already stressed because it's complicated for districts, teachers, parents, students. And that's where I think we have to help solve that before we can get that across the finish line.
Absolutely. Tracy, thank you so
Yeah,
much. That was so helpful. And thank you,
yeah,
everybody,
good.
for all your great work here.
Thanks for being
Thanks.
here. We really
Yeah, my
appreciate
pleasure.
that.
Yeah, thank
We really
you.
appreciate that. Okay, anybody else have any other comments before I'll see if our students are, where do they go?
I'm happy to share something. Oop,
Yeah, please, Jason.
if
Yeah.
you'd like, I'll keep it quick. We are rolling out a new adult program. Let me see if I can get this to work real quick. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Sorry, Zoom. Sharing. Come back to me. There you are. Okay. So good at this. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, now.
Yeah. Okay. Sage. So we're doing Financial Beginnings is doing a native-focused adaptation of our existing strategies to achieve financial empowerment, our SAFE program. Short version is mainstream financial education often doesn't take into account Native communities. Doesn't account for unique income sources like seasonal subsistence income. It ignores historical barriers to credit access like trust land restrictions, and it frames success purely uh, in individual terms. So we developed Sage to kind of bridge that gap with guidance and consultation from Stephanie Cote, who provided cultural insight and review throughout the development process. So you all know her probably. So there's the list of topics that we're hitting. I'm happy to share more about them, but we should be rolling this out in the next month. And we're very excited about it. We had a lot of interest in this. So we've got some native focused programming out there.
Thank you, Jason.
Mhm.
When is that statewide or is that, I mean, your organization is nationwide. Is it a nationwide rollout or?
It is indeed, although we're happy to do some piloting here in Washington. We've got lots of potentialities in the works for different program partners that are interested in this, quite a few of the tribes. And we are also hoping to roll this out nationally. One of our financial institution partners is very excited about this, and they're hoping to get on board. So they'll be doing quite a few of these
Great.
presentations.
Thank you for sharing so
Mhm.
much.
Great.
Okay. All right. Well, I see our guests have arrived, probably running from class. And so it's been a pleasure to get to work with these young adults. And they were able to present at the WASIFI board meeting a few weeks ago. And I said, oh my gosh, this board needs to hear what you're up to. And so I will let you introduce yourselves, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure you're able to share screen, and I'm just going to let you take it away. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hello, thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. I'm also going to get the screen set up.
There we go.
All right, that works?
Yes, great. Thank you so much.
Of course. And then I'll make this full. All right. Yeah, so as Tracy mentioned, we have been working with WASIFI for our capstone project at the University of Washington. So we've been working with some folks over there to create a data visualization teaching tool to address Washington wealth inequities. And so we'll kind of cover what that looks like here. A little bit about our team. My name is Maddie. I've been handling our project management. We also have Monica, who's doing our UX design as well as data analytics. Khalees, who's been doing our UX research as well as data analytics. And then Charisse, who's focused on our ethics and policy and things like that. So the problem statement that we've been trying to address this quarter and this upcoming quarter as well at UW is how might Washington high school teachers use data tools and visualizations to support their students in making informed economic decisions, as well as navigating the upcoming transfer of wealth. So we've been kind of working to figure out how to address this problem within the bounds of what WASIFI wants. And what we've settled on is our solution here.
So thank you, Maddie, for giving us that quick introduction. So our solution is an interactive story-based dashboard that will be directly integrated into WASIFI's existing webpage. And this is just supposed to reflect, students' lived experiences. And we actually created a quick demo video that will be from a student's perspective. So we're really excited to share this with you all.
This is Monica. She's a senior at Cleveland High School in South Seattle. She's been accepted to a few colleges in Washington. She's excited. She's also stressed. Considering college tuition, rent, student loans, helping her family, Monica keeps asking herself one question.
Is college actually going to help me move forward, or is it just going to put me in financial debt?
And I just wanted to check, is the sound of the video working? Okay, cool.
Hi, Mr. Lau. Do you have a minute?
For you? Always. What's up?
So I got into UW, but I don't really understand how people can afford it. My mom told me that higher education is the key to moving up in this world, but it just feels like everybody's starting at different places.
That's a really important question. Have you ever thought about how income, housing, and school funding shape the opportunities around you? Understanding this can actually help you make smarter decisions while in college.
Oh, really? I never really thought about that. I just always thought they were random.
It's not random. I got something I can show you.
When Monica toggles on median income household, she sees how dramatically income differs by county across Washington. She notices how different King County looks compared to Mason County.
I think I'd answer this by saying it changes what feels possible. Some families can invest, while some families are just trying to stay afloat.
As Monica scrolls, she sees an interesting visualization. Instead of isolated statistics, she sees connections such as how systemic racism links to voting barriers link to barriers to homeownership, and barriers to homeownership connect back to wealth disparities in Washington.
So it's not random. These conditions are all layered in history.
Now Monica lands on a choose your character feature. She explores perspectives beyond her own. The data isn't abstract anymore, it's lived. Finally, she explores your toolkit for an equitable future. This feature interests her the most because for students, awareness is the first step. This toolkit gives her ways to advocate, ways to plan, and ways to think critically about policy and opportunity.
So it's all connected. Income, housing, education.
Exactly. And once you can start seeing the system, you can start asking better questions.
This tool doesn't tell Monica what to do, but it helps her understand the landscape she's navigating. Because wealth isn't just personal, it's structural, it's geographic, and it shapes opportunity long before you ever start planning your future.
Yeah, so that is our demo video. And now that we've kind of introduced that visual conceptual understanding of our solution, we wanted to talk a little bit about how we envision this in high school classrooms themselves. So we've kind of been operating off of a three-tier vision, one just being a simplistic and easy integration. So we want teachers to be able to just hand off this finished tool very quickly to reduce instructional burdens that they might face in the classroom, and also acknowledging limited time and resources teachers might have. As well as we want to, specifically this quarter, create guiding frameworks and structures to kind of partner with this tool. So we've envisioned this one of two ways: either a series of integrated implementation ideas that are worked into the dashboard itself, so right there visible in the tool, or a centralized document or guide that teachers can view to understand potential purposes and uses. So again, this isn't something we've created yet, but it is something that we understand is likely very necessary to ease that transition into the classroom. And then we also want to make sure that this tool aligns with standardized requirements for Washington public education. So this could be either direct curricula requirements in social sciences, or legislatively outlined goals for public school districts, such as the regulations and requirements that this board right here has worked to develop. And so this specifically is something that we would love to get any insight on at this meeting, is how we can best integrate this into the classroom from a teacher perspective, and the best ways that we can do that this upcoming quarter for Capstone. And so next up we have our personas, who we designed for, and our main users are as we envisioned.
So yes, to the left, we have our student persona. This is Alex, and they're a junior at Franklin High School, and they're planning on attending a local university. We pretty much want to highlight what they're seeking from our product, and that is practical guidance and actionable steps as they move forward into their career. And then to our right, we have a teacher perspective. This is Mr. Clark, and they're a high school civics and an economics teacher. And what their goals are is they need a ready-to-use, locally relevant tool to help guide their students.
And so for our user research and user testing over last quarter, we conducted around 25 hours of digital research and held many in-depth interviews with key stakeholder groups, as well as about 20 cumulative hours for data analysis and also user testing interviews. And our main goals here were being concerned with whether our goals themselves were clear through the dashboard, whether our data questions achieved our learning objectives, and trying to figure out what else teachers and students wanted to see and enjoyed. And some of the key insights we gathered was that Washington has very specific pain points that we needed to design and address for, and that Washington financial education is oftentimes not centralized. It's very inconsistent and largely optional. So it depends on the resources that teachers have available to them. Secondly, from more of that student perspective, engagement is most high when students can see themselves in the data, and we use interactive tools that connect to real financial concepts to help connect that and make that bridge. And then we also want to make sure that our tools and visualizations make structural barriers felt, not just shown. And we do that through trying to create feedback loops, localized comparisons, and guided narratives.
So using the insights that we got through our research, here are some of the key points that we kind of took away from it. So first, was the representation and relevance. Just really honing in on those demographics and prioritizing our research around a diverse group of people. We need to continue doing that in the future, especially as we continue working on this product. Next is our visual clarity and design. Wasifi has a very bright palette and a lot of different types of colors. So one of the feedbacks that we got were to just focus on using 1 or 2 colors and just getting that done. And then interactivity and engagement, we got a lot of good feedback about our the interactive features of our tool and how that is, we should probably just focus on that as well. And then also prioritizing the educators and classroom usability in our resource as well. So those are just a few key points.
Now that we have a greater understanding of our project, a few of the ethical considerations we had were risks of oversimplifying marginalized youth experiences, predictive harm, as well as emotional distress from visualizations, as oversimplifying inequality may reinforce negative stereotypes. Projections about the wealth transfer can be interpreted as fixed outcomes, discouraging action, and visualizations can foster feelings of fear, anxiety, and disengagement within students. To mitigate this, we really wanted to hone in on the structural, cultural, and historical context in our data analysis, frame our findings conditionally to highlight policy levers, agency, and opportunities for change in the future, and design accessible, solution-oriented visuals that present inequality honestly but not hopelessly. And as we move into our spring quarter, we plan on integrating any additional components in our data analytics and character sections, test and design new choices within our design program, like Wasifi's color types, to enhance the accessibility and to keep the focus on the critical information we present to the students. And finally, translate our design into a functional coded deliverable for user testing in our next iteration. Thank you all for your time and attention today. Do we have any questions or comments?
Thank you so much. Any questions? Any follow-up? If you're looking for teacher feedback, I might try to connect you with outside of this group. We might have some other educators that would be happy to meet with you if that sounds like some direction you'd like to take some feedback from.
Yes, definitely. I think we have kind of our key individuals who we've been working with throughout last quarter, but any new perspectives we can get, especially from that teacher side of things, is always great. So yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, maybe we can connect again and debrief after you have a few minutes to breathe. Bobby, did you have anything particularly to add? You could see this from a million angles, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much, folks, for sharing that. I think definitely if we can get a copy of the PowerPoint and answering kind of those deeper level questions is one that we can check in on. But I definitely think this is something that our ed committee can collaborate with you. And just so you guys know, I'm a middle school teacher myself, full time. So
also a student.
What's that?
Also a student.
That is true. I am also a student, but I'm a kook. So my wife's a husky though, so it's okay. But we'd absolutely love to support your work and have some good questions and see how we can build some good collaboration with you guys and make a really good product to support the students of the state of Washington. So thank you.
I will send you the PowerPoint, Bobby. I've got it. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, or comments?
Just a round of applause. Very nicely done. I can't even give feedback because I'm so impressed right now. I would have to see it again. Really great work. Congratulations.
So Ryan, are you saying give them the application form?
I think that y'all should absolutely put in a request for presentation proposal. Context. Bank on Washington Forum is an annual forum primarily between financial institutions, community-based organizations, government agencies, and financial educators generally. This year, our theme is Bridges Over Barriers. It will be September 2nd and 3rd in Tacoma. We have an open proposal process. Links are in the chat. If you want to learn more about what is the Bank on Washington Forum, the FAQ is also in the chat. I will put my information in there and an invite to the kickoff celebration next week.
You could always get more information from Christy as well, because Christy, Artemis, I think, and Wasifi members have largely participated over the years, Ryan. So if they lose track of it through you, we'll make sure they're connected through these other channels. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking time. I know it was rushing to get here after class, so we want to just thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask if anybody has any other comments before we close out the meeting. We're just down to our good of the order. Anybody have any additional good of the order? Okay. Well, then I am going to say we can adjourn the meeting a little bit early at 12:43. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We really appreciate it.